Good day, everybody. Let's see if we can make some sense out of what's happening here in California with regard to AI restriction and that particular development. I know that we've seen some changes on the regulation front. I think one of the questions that has failed to have been asked up to this point is there a way that regulation actually stifles or prohibits the forward advancement of artificial intelligence? I don't know if there's any studies that actually show that. And simple regulation might be don't allow anyone to build systems capable of killing human beings. Always keep human beings in the top part of the respect by every single model ever built, ever programmed. The data that's given to it, always have systems in place to always keep human beings as the number one, and that these systems would never harm, never hurt, or never cause any kind of an issue with human beings. Does that kind of regulation actually stifle the systems to be able to be built out? Maybe on the war end of it, because of course AI technology, I think, still requires a human in the loop if there's going to be a decision made as to whether to kill or not kill a human being in even on the opposing side or in an enemy force. Even if that person is about to take somebody else's life, I still believe a human being has to be in the loop, at least at this point. But the future might be completely different. It might be a case where AI is able to make its own decisions. And then if we were to stifle it or put controls on it where human life is held in a sacred way by all artificial intelligence systems, well, then it wouldn't be able to do the war thing. And maybe that's what we need to be looking at. But again, the systems aren't really being engineered for that. There are a lot of safety protocols that aren't being put into place. Again, don't know what those look like, what they should be, but I think protecting human life and maybe trying to help human beings might be an overall kind of a goal for the systems itself as they continue to grow in strength and ability. But right now in California, there is SB 53, Senate Bill 53, and that actually was approved. So what that requires is California is now going to ask builders of the most powerful artificial intelligence publish a safety plan, how they prevent avoidable harm and avoid harm, protect whistleblowers, people that report problems, report serious incidents to the state. It also begins planning for CalCompute. Do a little research on that, a public computing cluster so schools and startups can access strong computers without Wall Street pricing. There's always people behind all of these different things. So it's interesting to see who's behind that. So do your own research, CalCompute. But so we have a safety plan in place. Great. That's California. If it's too restrictive here, there's so much money in the development of AI, and maybe California isn't the best state for that development because of all the environmental regulations. It's like in the gun world, California is not the easiest place. If you're a criminal, you get a gun. That's a piece of cake. Like that's anywhere. If you're mentally unstable and you're a criminal, you want to do somebody in, get a gun. Yeah, you just go steal it from a good person or do something of that nature to get it. That's kind of the difference. Good people, to get a gun in California, it takes a while to get one. Even if you're a great person, have a great record, have pass all whatever tests that you're required by the state of California to get a gun. But you move to another state and the regulation isn't as much. So you can get a gun rather quickly. Instead of having a waiting period like you have in California, you can go to another state and pick one up without a waiting period at all. Not as a resident of, you have to be a resident of that state. Probably, but okay, I digress. If AI in California becomes too difficult, they're just going to move AI to other states that have less regulation. If the system's still going to be moving forward, I suppose that in this particular case, California won't be those responsible. Maybe that's how they're falling back on this. In addition, the whistleblower protection, interesting. So now the people that are inside watching the development of this technology, they will now not have to worry about being part of the problem if they offer some kind of a solution or at least report on what's happening on the inside. That might be another reason why developers of AI technology leave the state. Now it says most powerful AI intelligence. I'm curious as to what that looks like, because I can start to program and build an AI of my own, just buy the right chipset and get a powerful enough computer. I could also do that. So I'm sure that's not the most powerful, but some of the major players in the game, some of them have a lot of a lot of placement here in California because of the weather. You got Palo Alto, you got the San Francisco crowd, all of that. So it's a very attractive place to put this stuff together. We'll have to see where this gets us, but this was just signed through. And in Santa Clarita Valley, how does that translate to us? Realistically, I don't know who on the ground here in Santa Clarita is building this architecture for internal artificial intelligence. We'll have to see. But moving into the next thing, we'll look at OpenAI's growth and NVIDIA's muscle. Key figures, 4.3 billion in H1 2025. That's the first half. OpenAI and a 10 gigawatt data center planned via an LOI, letter of intent, with NVIDIA. NVIDIA intending up to 100 billion. That's $100 billion of investment capacity as capacity goes live. First 1 gigawatt targeted H2. That's the second half of 2026. So they're in it. The data centers are going to be built. I did a story this last week about water consumption to cool off these superconductors and these semiconductors. So there's a lot that has to be done in that realm. They use fresh water to do so because it's less problematic using salt water. Salt water has more of a corrosive nature, and there's also other things that come along with salt water. So you take fresh water, and that's drinking water. That's the stuff we drink. And where do you get that? Well, lakes, aquifers, those sorts of things. When you start building these massive data centers, they start to be very water absorbing, water using, and that's fresh water. So we have to make sure that that's going to be a delicate balancing act in California, right? Remember the fires in the Palisades? Well, there was a lot of water we should have had that we didn't have. And it wasn't because it wasn't available. It was, well, it was probably a governmental issue. I think that's been pretty much proven as fact. Water wasn't allowed to come in, and maybe there was a bigger, greater plan in the process by the powers that be. But ultimately, that's how that played out. So now we have AI being built. We have different data centers being built. Again, the different methods of using water to cool. Some have closed systems, some are open systems, radiated systems. It just depends on the system how much water is being used. But some of these things can use up to 12 million gallons of water per day for a 1 gigawatt data center. And, that's maybe 1% to 2% of total Los Angeles water usage per day, but that's still quite a bit. But then you get a 10 gigawatt data center. You can see how this is going to grow. And then I've even heard talks of a terawatt data center, which would be 1,000 gigawatt data center, right? 1 tera. Oh my gosh, it's huge. So that's the water issue. If they could just come up with a room temperature superconductor, I say it like it's easy. If that would be the technology, question would be, is it possible to replace and get the data centers, even if they have many of them built? What does that cost look like? And of course, it seems like cost is never an issue when it comes to the development of artificial intelligence. But if they do come up with a room temperature semi-superconductor, is that a possibility of having that overlay placed on these data centers so now there's no water requirement whatsoever? Or does that changeover cost a lot? And also, does that affect the basic chipsets themselves? I guess it would be, because that would be the silicones, the architecture the chips are built on. Answer in the comments. Let me know if that would change everything, and then what that switch out would look like if they did come up with technology. And I did a comparison. You have some of the biggest diseases in the world just completely built around monetization. You have cancer research. It's a big deal. Not that that doesn't have its place, and not that cancer research and the medicines that are provided for people that have cancer don't save lives. I've been through that. I've had family members that have made it and have not made it, but it seems like there was life extension given. That being the case, if, Johnny next week builds an AI that cures cancer, it has the solve all for all of cancer in the world, and he takes that to the powers that be and say, I figured it out. Here it is. It's going to work. What's that look like? Has that already happened? Is it something that they're going to hold back and say, wow, we might want to make Johnny disappear? There's things, the rumors, and you've heard this from probably the beginning. People have talked about this very thing. Does that also translate over? If that's the case, I don't know if it is, but if it's the case, does that translate over to the other side of it when you have room temperature superconductors having that equation solved, and then that overlay and replacing and trying to upscale the data centers, or are they just going to keep pulling on water? And something that keeps burning me up, and maybe I'm completely wrong on this, but from what I understand, the renewable energy, the solar energy, is actually more efficient and less costly to put into place and even operate than fossil fuel energy. If that's the case, why is it that we as a government and a world, at least here in the United States, let's say, why are we so intent on using fossil fuels? I understand there's a lot of money attached to that with the people that work in it. You have lobbies, you have big, coal and this sort of thing. And maybe that's a good thing. Natural gas, there's money behind there too. But I don't know if that's the best approach for the United States as a whole. It seems like everybody's chasing down the almighty dollar instead of maybe pulling back and asking questions. That includes the development of artificial intelligence. People are putting together this greater than human intelligence. And frankly, we don't know what that looks like. There's not many cases in nature except one that I know myself. And I know I've heard Mo Godwat, one of the people that I follow, talk about this as well. There isn't any other case besides a mother-child relationship with where a more powerful, more intelligent human is able to care and love for a less intelligent, less powerful human being. And that's a mother and a child relationship. And through evolution or creation, whichever side you're on, that's taken a very long time to get to work. And in some cases, it doesn't work, but in most cases, it does. What does it look like when we have a superintelligence that's currently in the process of maturing? And after time, this superintelligence that we've created is going to be smarter than all of us in every field. We don't know what that looks like. You'll hear people talk about doom and p-doom and the end of things and how artificial intelligence is going to do everybody in at a point. We frankly just don't know what that looks like. We don't know if that's in fact going to be the case, but we don't have any other examples. So for us to say that, yes, it's going to do us in 100% because we don't have a case of a smarter intelligence taking care of a lesser intelligence besides a mother and a child, we don't know what that smarter intelligence actually looks like. But from our finite minds, it would appear that it doesn't look good if in fact we're in the way in any shape or form. If it has goals that push past human development, human learning, human safety, human caring, if it pushes past those and then has goals that are very much self-centered for the building, development, and continued growth of artificial intelligence, we might it not so much be hunted or gone after, we might just not be really cared about. And I think caring for us by AI should be a major priority because ultimately that's really where it's going to come down to, whether we survive this or not. Now, people talk about job loss. I've been talking about this ever since I started the show. You have a major owner of a CEO that's got, or a company, a CEO that's got 5,000 employees. I'm sure the studies are being done, how many of these employees are able to go the way with an AI employee, because the cost savings it's almost like going to zero as far as cost for that corporation if in fact they put AI in place. And yes, it's there. It's there for customer service. It's there for voice AI and voice chats. It's there. It's arrived, and it's the worst it's going to be today. And today it's able to really get by almost 100% of the people, depending on how it's trained and how it's put together, which when I'm putting these together for businesses, it really does take the time to be able to program and get all the information, the FAQs and everything, and then also go through a live test with the bot to make sure it doesn't go off the rails or say something it's not supposed to, especially if we're talking about loans and lending, for example. There's certain rules that it can and cannot say when it comes to mortgage and rates and these sorts of things. Also, it has to be completely, transparent. It can't start to talk about protected classes, races, religions. So you have to basically make sure these systems are put into play. But when you do that on a major scale for different corporations and have it connected to other options like refund options, refund portals, also taking care of it, nurturing sequences, discount portals for maybe a bad experience, and then have that tied to a reviews platform. Then they have reviews come back on the business. It's just really seamless. It works incredibly well. It's a lot different than, being told by your instructor that your calculator was going to learn for you. Now we have these systems that we're able to put into place, train and teach, just like they do the large language models. Well, nowhere near in that level, but we're able to train and teach them, and then they're able to perform, because then we can test those systems and watch how they do. And it's quite remarkable. Those businesses that are going to be able to replace that workforce with that type of technology, what's going to stop them from doing that? Yes, you have the human element. I know the Replit cat, I forgot his name. I like him. I like the way he speaks, at least on the forefront. He talks about loyalty. He talks about really loving what he does. And he's had, and I believe this for a fact, he's had many offerings of buyouts giving him so much money. And he already has money, but giving him so much more money. And even now, there's never a concern, but there would never be a concern generationally for him forever, because of the offerings. And then he wouldn't have to worry about it. Maybe he'd go build something else. Maybe he'd go relax. He's probably like me. I'm never going to relax. But, he says no. He loves what he does, and it's just getting better. And he's the CEO, the owner of Replit. Remarkable. And his story as well is incredible. I don't know where the rest of the world would be. I like his loyalty to what he's built out. That's why I'm a big fan of that. Some other people, they can be bought very easily and traded. You have people that work at the top of these different AI labs, and you just throw a little bit of money at them and they jump ship, and there is no loyalty or care there. And I think that's misplaced in this world. People should be more loyal and care where they are and actually have that kind of allegiance. I'm speaking to the choir. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's update. We will be back tomorrow. There's so much more to talk about, but just watching the development, watching how fast this moves. I was talking to some cat yesterday going over, every 4.7 months, this technology is doubling, and 5.7, excuse me. And we have a lot of those developments coming our way. It's going to continue to grow, and we're going to have to keep watching, because we really don't know what's going to happen until it does happen. I'm Connor with Honor, Santa Clarita Artificial Intelligence. Thank you for watching. I will be 10-8 until the next one. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.